Hey there, so you're wondering about how to eat healthy. Can be a bit overwhelming, can't it? So today I'm going to show you the basics of how to get started. So the first thing you want to start thinking about is the quality of your food. What is it made from? Where does it come from? And how processed is it? So when I say processed, I mean, does it come in a packet? Or how many steps has it gone through to get to you? So the simplest way of thinking about it, an unprocessed food is a food that you can just literally walk outside, pick an apple off a tree and eat it. That's unprocessed, right? It's raw, it's a whole food. It's whole in its whole form, the form that it was made by nature. So then you get to other things which have maybe gone through a couple of processes. Say for example, a nut or a seed, it's in a packet, right? It's been taken off the plant, it's then been taken through some sort of mill processing, whatever, and then you end up with the seed. But it's still in its whole form, right? So you can get peanuts that still have their shells, you can open them up. That's a whole peanut. And then you take the shell away because you don't eat that, and then you've got the peanut left, right? So this is an unprocessed food. However, when you start getting more processed, basically what happens is the wholeness of the food disappears and you start ending up with flours and butters, pastes, oils, sugars, all these things that are put together to make something in a recipe, right? So these foods are no longer whole, they are processed foods. So that's the first thing to know, is the difference between a whole, a true whole food, and a processed food. Then you get into processed, super processed foods. So what's the difference between a good sort of wholesome processed food and a really bad quality processed food? The difference is usually in the number of ingredients, right? So when you look on the back of a packet, you get the ingredients list. You have a look on there, it says ingredients, and then underneath, in a bad one, you might have 20 or 30 ingredients. Half those words you won't even understand what they mean because they're some scientific word or some chemical. If it's a good one, it'll have, I say, between 5 and 8 ingredients, right? So for example, it might be, say you're buying muesli, It might say oats, sultanas, and a bunch of fruits. That would be amazing. That would be a good muesli. A poor quality muesli would be like this. It would say oats, it would say fruits, it would say flavors, it would say colorings, it would say sugar, it would say castor oil or vegetable oil, preservatives, a number of things that it would say in there that are not even food. They're actually chemicals and they're toxic. So I'm going to go into a bit more about this now, but the first two things is how whole is it? Then when you're in a packet, how many ingredients does it have, right? So now what we want to talk about is 2 or 3 of the main ingredients that you're going to find in these processed foods, right? And the quality of these foods. So I'm going to start with fats. Ta-da! Number 1, butter, right? So fats come in many forms. You've got saturated and you've got unsaturated. I'm not going to go into the finer details right now, but this is a animal fat that is high saturated fat. You want to reduce this as much as possible. The fact is, too much saturated fat is not good for us. So keep this as low as possible. If you're going to use butter, only use a small amount, use it sparingly, and make sure it's organic. And the reason I say organic is I'm not an organic freak. I don't recommend everyone go organic because it's just too darn expensive. But if you're going to go organic with something, I would go organic with butter. And there's a reason for that, is the fat of the animal that you are eating the dairy from, right, the milk from, or getting the fat from, is the fat stores chemicals, right? So when you're taking the fat out of the milk, you're eating one of the most chemically contaminated aspects of an animal product. So this is why if you're going to have butter, you make sure it's organic. It's very important that you do that. So once you've got butter out of the way, yes, butter tastes nice, I'm not going to lie, it tastes nice, but keep it low. Just special occasion, small amounts, right? The next thing you want to do is you want to get olive oil, right? Organic, doesn't have to be organic, sorry. It can just be a good quality extra virgin olive oil. The reason I'm showing you this, it's in a tin, right? This stores the olive oil in a good way, so away from the light. Sunshine damages fats. If you're buying it in a bottle, it has to be glass and it has to be dark, right? If you are buying olive oil in plastic, the plastic leaches out into the fat because fat absorbs toxins, right? So then you're eating the chemicals that are in the plastic. Not good for you. Causes cancer, lots of things, right? So these are the 3 things to be thinking about when you're doing when you're looking for fats. You want to keep the saturated fat down. If you're doing butter, it needs to be organic, right? If you're doing olive oil, then you want to make sure it's stored in glass bottles that are dark or tins. No plastic, no light, clear glass, because the light damages the oil, right? Then, when you are storing the oil, again, do not put this beside your stove. It gets hot, right? The heat damages the oil. So we don't want to have damaged oil. We want to have nice, healthy oil, because once it gets damaged, it turns it into a oxidant, it's the opposite of an antioxidant, a free radical. Free radicals cause a lot of damage and inflammation within the body. So this is the difference between a good fat and a bad fat. You can turn good olive oil into bad olive oil just by putting it in the light, beside the heat, or having the lid open, right? So if your lid is sitting open all the time, the air is going in there, it's going to oxidize the oil. So it's very important that you have the lid screwed on tight, away from the heat and away from the light. So that's fats. Those are the 2 main fats that I cook with. I primarily just use olive oil as much as I can for everything. There's a lot of scientific studies now that show that olive oil really is the healthiest fat for us to be using. There was a huge trend for coconut, which I'm sure you're aware of if you're watching this video. Don't recommend it. The reason for that is it is too high in saturated fat. A little bit again, if you really love coconut and you can't have butter, then a little bit instead of butter would be fine. But again, go with olive oil as much as you can. Then as far as other fats and things go, like you've got sesame oil and all those ones, peanut oil and all those other ones that you can use. Again, use them sparingly. Often they have been damaged. The quality, all that sort of stuff is can be a bit hard to tell. So olive oil where you can, and sparingly with butter. So that's the fat thing. The other one I wanted to talk to you about today is sugar, because we probably all know that sugar is not great for us, right? So all sugar, all the cane sugar, goodbye, out the door, bang, in the rubbish. No more sugar. It is not good for you. It feeds the bugs in your gut, it depresses your immune system, it causes blood sugar problems. There's just so many issues with sugar. So this video is not about the issues, it's just about what to do. So what I recommend, xylitol. Yeah? Xylitol is a sugar alcohol. It is made from birch or other plants, and it is basically how it works is it binds to the sugar receptors on the tongue, or the sweet taste buds on the tongue, and instead of going into the body like sugar does and feeding you and giving you energy, it actually is broken down by the microflora in your gut, and then it leaves the body, right? It does have a few calories, so it's lower in calories than normal sugar and higher than other sugar alcohols. One of the side effects for some people is that it will give you loose bowels, diarrhea, that sort of thing, gas, bloating. Now, if that's happening to you, that is because you've got a problem with the flora in your gut. So you've either got SIBO or an overgrowth of the wrong things in your gut. So that's something you would talk to your naturopath about to help balance that out. And it's kind of like a test. It's like, how good is the gut flora in your gut? So if you're getting the gas and things, it's an indicator that the flora in the gut's probably a bit out of whack. So the next thing you can use is sparingly coconut sugar. So this comes from the coconut nectar, and it's just made into sugar. It is lower in sugar than sugar, and it's got a nice caramel flavor. The other option is maple syrup. Now, when you're buying maple syrup, you have to be very, very careful because there's plastic ones out there. Plastic fantastic, right? Synthetic flavored. Basically, it's sugar syrup that's got maple syrup flavoring. absolute junk, do not buy it. This has to be 100%, like it says, pure Canadian maple syrup. That's the good stuff. Again, use it sparingly. I use maple syrup and xylitol the most because I find it gives the least of a blood sugar spike in myself, right? And the one I personally use the least is is honey, right? So I choose Manuka honey. It's from New Zealand. It's got lots of really, really good things that it helps with, like your immune system, bugs and all that sort of stuff. And it's got a beautiful flavor. The thing about honey is honey is being contaminated these days as well, right? Chemicals, because of all the sprays and pesticides. So if you want to spend a lot of money, you'll buy organic. I personally don't. I just don't spend the money on it. But I don't use that much, so it doesn't really matter. So this is a good sort of starting place for you. If you are wondering what to do, how to start cleaning up your diet, these 3 things, oils and sugars, are huge. And then reading the labels of your packets, massive thing. If you just start there and you go through your cupboards and you slowly start to, be like, okay, this week I'm going to sort out the fats. I'm going to go through my cupboards and I'm going to get rid of all the bad oils and all the bad fats and all the things with canola oil and it's sometimes called rapeseed oil and vegetable oil. Get rid of all those because those things are toxic. I'll explain it more in another video just specifically around fats. But just trust me for that. For now, those are toxic. You only want to use the ones that I've talked about today. So you go through your cupboards and you throw that stuff out. You're like, I'm not eating that anymore. Don't give it to the dog unless you want the dog to have the same problems that it gives you. Right? And then do the same with sugar. Go through your cupboard and throw out all the things that are full of sugar. And artificial sweeteners are just as bad for another reason, which I'll explain another day. And just have these things. And then go to the supermarket and buy the things that are good, right? And then there's one rule, don't buy the crap again. Don't buy the crap again, just keep buying the good stuff forever. That's it, right? So fruit and veggies, 5 or 8 ingredients in a packet, and sort out your fats and your sugars. Good start. We'll talk to you soon.